It's odd to win an award at this particular event because it's one I've been involved with for so long in many different ways. So it's kind of a strange journey, um, but an honor, especially given who's here and who else was nominated. In the last 12 months, perhaps some of the things that led to that nomination is my work on the hot sheet, where I'm talking about some of the hot button issues that are affecting authors, like libraries, uh, ebooks at libraries and the library lending, also issues that authors continue to face with Amazon, counterfeiting, and all of the other things that um, where we're worried about Amazon's power in the market.
Yeah, there's been a lot of discussion about that. I wanted to pick up on one thing you said about libraries. We're just about to come out with a focused guidebook for indies on how to get their books into libraries. So I'm interested in your thoughts about libraries and ebooks and what you think both the potential and some of the risks are there with libraries.
If I'm just speaking from my own personal opinion, I think that I can be described as pro-library. I see very little or no drawbacks to making ebooks available through libraries. There's so many different access models available. Although I know indie authors have a tougher time getting into some of those markets, like there's some limitations there, like publishers have more options right now. I would like to see that change, and perhaps advocacy through ALLi will help open up some of those channels that I think need to be available to indies. But assuming that indies have some control over the models and the pricing, it's a win-win. Like, it leads to more discoverability and more sales. Well, Amazon is still always, kind of at the top of the list in so many ways. I think how their advertising grows or affects visibility on the site is important for everyone. The audible captions issue is, of course, going to continue to play out, so I'll be watching that. And yeah, it's right now, I think because we're at Digital Book World, I'm thinking more digitally, but of course there are other issues that we're always looking at in terms of print on demand and distribution and opportunities there, like with the Create Space to KDP transition. I think some important qualities were lost, and so I'm looking forward to seeing if any other distributors like Draft to Digital or others kind of come into play and maybe offer some alternatives.
I think it's really interesting today. We have a lot of consumers of content want an authentic, they want to understand authentically who's doing the writing more so ever than in the past. There's no more of this celebrity, untouchable. People want to know who you are. And now we have these channels like social media and even Alexa skills where you can actually release content to them from you in your own words, in your own voice. And that really creates an authentic relationship with your readers. And I think it's different now because it's more accessible, right? And I also think there's just a hunger for real connection with the people that you're consuming content from, right? Never before have we been able to look at these people, and I want to know that the person who wrote the thing that touched me, actually, it touched them too. They didn't just write it. Right? So I want to know, what was the story that caused that to happen? What was that moment, that transformational moment that happened that caused them to write that piece that touched me so much? And I'm willing to engage in a much deeper level with authors that are willing to do that.
And then what's the link to AI? I can't leave you without having you talk
Of
about
course.
AI, since you're, the AI Leadership Institute. But how does AI fit with that? How can it help us do that?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people struggle with, how do I get my content out there? And if they're writers, how do they ever show up on a platform like Alexa? And so I want to introduce to anyone, if you are a good, writer, that you can use technologies like speech to text, or text to speech, to just take your text and turn it into a voice. And today you can even create a customized voice, so you can choose if it's gender neutral or sounds like a woman or sounds like a man, or you can even make it sound a little bit like yourself. So there's a lot of opportunity for people who are good at writing and want to get their content into the audio world without them needing any fancy specialists to do it.
Hello, I'm Paul Cutzinger. I'm on the Amazon Alexa team. Digital Book World's really cool because it's a lot of authors. And I normally get to talk to a lot of developers, and they're making these really cool experiences for Alexa, and they don't have the same kind of depth around content and story and building out these really immersive experiences. And so really bringing that creativity together with the developers I normally get to talk to is really exciting. Yeah, so Alexa is, it's the speaker system you can have in your house, and you can talk to it. And of course you can do things like set a timer or get the weather and those kinds of things. But you can also do some really deep, interesting, complex things. Like, for example, you can listen to a story about Jurassic World, and it'll go through the whole thing. You get to hear like an interactive audio fiction story, and you can choose different paths and do all sorts of things. There's quiz games, all sorts of stuff like that. So deep immersive. Get the family around together to have a conversation at the dinner table and enjoy something together is a really fun way to do this. If you're an author, you have no idea what to do, go to blueprints.amazon.com, and in there's a bunch of stories and other kinds of skills that you could make with no coding necessary. Go in there and type in one of the stories. And the key thing is to listen how it sounds, because the way we write in typing is a little bit different than the way we write when you're talking. And so this will give you the experience of like trying it and then hearing it and you're like, ooh, I'm going to change it a little bit. And so it's really fun. And you can always share them with your family, your friends, and all that kind of stuff. So blueprints.amazon.com.
Blueprints.amazon.com. Okay, we put that in the notes also.
Oh, great.
And just finally, where is this all going? What's ahead that authors are going to be excited about?
Well, I think that's the exciting part. So first of all, I think what we have right now in voice is really exciting because it's just so fast and easy and like to ask for a piece of music. I want to play a piece of music by my favorite artist is so easy with voice. But what we have today isn't where it's going to be 3, 4, 5 years from now. It's going to be very different. And it's up to us, the community. It's up to the authors, it's up to the developers, the designers to come together and figure out what this will be. And I don't know. So that's why I'm here actually, is that we can really meet these people that are a little more visionary and saying, where are we going to take this and what are we going to do with it? It's exciting.
We hope to help there.
Yeah, I love
okay, thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so much.
In your presentation this morning, I was interested in, oh my God, so much, but in particular, the discussion about owning versus renting your audience. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Sure, yeah. I mean, so owning the audience is really having them in your ecosystem, right? Having return customers, having people come to your websites over and over and over again to see what's new, having them sign up for your newsletters, having them purchase directly from you. Renting your audience is really relying on third parties to be your advocate to the consumer, right? So own to me is direct to consumer, rented is someone's presenting you to the consumer. And so whether it's Facebook or it's an influencer or it's a bookseller, it's a librarian, those are all examples of audiences that you rent, right? Because you're not the voice directly to that consumer.
It was in conjunction with my work for the Next Page conference, which was a free digital conference that Kickstarter ran, talking about the future of publishing. We talked about money in publishing, inclusivity, technology, and community, which are 4 things that I think are most important in the publishing world. And the conference was streamed for free online. It's still archived online. If you go to kickstarter.com/conferences, it pops right up so anyone can see the amazing panels for free. So we see 1,800 projects, publishing projects are successfully funded on Kickstarter every single year. We've had over 12,500 successfully funded projects. Some of those are as small as $1,000 for cover design and a copy editor, and some of them are as big as Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls, which raised over $800,000. So the range is really, really huge. Part of my job at Kickstarter is creating resources and helping authors and publishers understand how to use the platform, because there's a huge learning curve. So I want to make sure that someone who is launching a project or thinking about it has all the information they need to do it well. They need to tell their story well, they need to create a compelling page, they need to have good rewards and price them well, and then they need to have a plan for promotion before they even hit the launch button. And all of those things together will really help set them up for success. But if you've never run one before, you might not even know how important one of those factors is. Well, we're doing Make 100 again in January, which is we invite people from around the creative world to run a small project to make 100 of something. So it could be 100 copies of a limited edition hardcover, could be 100 zines, it could be an event with 100 tickets, whatever your creative idea, if you can frame it such that you limit it to 100, then you can totally be part of the event. And we promote that all January long. I think it's a really cool, fresh way to launch a new year with a real creative bang.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your
Thank
time
you so
and
much.
congratulations once again.
Thank you.
So I'd like to think a little bit more about in terms of the independent authors and entrepreneurs, kind of trends that are going on for them. One big thing is change. It's kind of funny to think of it as a trend because we do always have it, but this idea that we don't have to keep doing things the same way we've always done them just because that's the way we've always done them, right? And to me, that's kind of a trend because we're talking about it now. And one of the things that I see every single day is people doing things exactly the same way. And so one of my big takeaways is to keep re-examining, to keep looking at the way we're doing, to keep questioning and challenging. I think that's something. I think also diversity is a big trend. And I think for independent authors, that's actually really critical because it opens up a whole world of exploration and invites new writers in and gives everyone a voice. And I think that's important. That's another trend that we've been talking a little bit about here. And then ebooks. You know, a lot of people are talking about the decline. A lot of traditional publishers, you hear them say our ebook business is down. Well, at Open Road, our ebook business is up 34%. So something is going on there. So to me, this idea that ebooks are trending down, that it's all about audio and it's all about print, I still think it's an awful lot about e. So for me, ebooks remain a trend. This idea that the business is actually, the digital business is not down. There's a lot we can do with it. The digital business is something we can see it everywhere. It's no longer about getting books on shelves, which is something that traditional publishers claim they can do. And a lot of independent publishers can now do it also thanks to places like Ingram and wherever else, but still digital. I work with a lot of independent authors, and sure, you walk into a bookstore and there you are. How cool is that? And at the same time, I would like to point out that this discoverability in a bookstore isn't really any less encumbered than online. Discoverability is one of the reasons I think people like to be in a bookstore. They think it's easier to find my book on a shelf than it is to look on an online retailer. I'm not sure that's true because there's a lot of ways that you can manage and manipulate and control your discoverability online that you do not have the power to do in store. And so I think that's something to consider. Where am I going to be that's going to give me the most visibility, the most control over my discoverability, and allow me to drive the most revenue? And I suspect that if you really took a step back and looked at the big picture and got past loving to see your face on that shelf, that you might find that online is a better place to be for those things. They address those needs. And who doesn't want to drive more revenue?
Right.
Well, I do think it's a big picture because, for us as a business owner, you can get so involved in the day-to-day where you're answering emails and you're writing cards and you're just doing the same thing over and over. You sometimes miss the big picture. And what is interesting about this conference is that it's digital and it's really kind of the bleeding, edge of trends going out there. So what's happening, in the digital world, or with Alexa, in the voice spoken world, that's another, big thing that's happening. And just the way that you market your book and the importance of metadata and all of those things that most authors don't really want to think about. Like my wife always says, reviews are like shoes. You can't have too many.
Right.
So I would say actually for an important element of reviews is that you go out. There's a lot of companies out there that do reviews and do your diligence. I mean, even with us, due diligence. Check with somebody like ALLi. They have a list of accredited companies that they deal with on their website, so you can go and check and see, who's legit and who's not. And so we also do contests too. That's the same with contests. Some, contests are not created equal, and some are just, frankly, outright, scams out there, and they just, trying to get your money. So we, for us, our purpose is to really help authors. We want our authors to get discovered, and when our authors are successful, it makes us successful, and it's a win-win for us, really.
Yeah.